What happens when it's easier to run a cybercrime business than an ethical, productive business today? Well, we've arrived at a place where relative anonymity and jurisdictions act as a law enforcement hurdle, so that various aspects of cybercrime just keep on getting more and more commoditized. At this point, nearly every person online is aware of phishing. And so the phishing pages just have to look more convincing in order to still be effective to convince potential victims to become victims. And what could be better than a phishing-as-a-service for an enterprising criminal? And so that's where we are at now. There's this new phishing service called Greatness, which is ironic to say the least, that actually generates very convincing phishing pages, mostly for Office 365. And as usual, the protection against this is like any other phishing campaign: zero trust connectivity to protect end users from visiting domains that are not needed nor trusted. There was a leak of MSI UEFI signing keys that, while there's no reports of any supply chain attacks on MSI yet, the scenario looks so bad that any serious security posture has to be considered before accepting the risk of using MSI hardware. And this issue will most certainly be picked apart at length by security researchers in the coming months. The White House is considering a ban on ransom payments with some caveats. And to summarize, the White House and international partners in the fight against ransomware are considering a ban on ransom payments, eyeing a new and complicated means to counter financially motivated threat actors. Netgear's routers flaws expose users to malware, remote attacks, and surveillance. Now, this took the chaining of 5 separate vulnerabilities at Ponta in Toronto to exploit these routers. And it reminds me of the oft-quoted Bruce Schneier that attacks only get more sophisticated. So the good news is that Netgear has patched all these vulnerabilities, but firmware upgrades are going to be needed in order to apply them. And hackers use a public exploit to attack vulnerable WordPress websites. And since the vast majority of the public web is running on WordPress, this is a huge attack surface. It took roughly 24 hours for the published proof of concept to turn into active exploitation. And this just shows how criminals are getting faster. And website security necessarily must be managed these days with a clear and rapid patch management policy. Not to mention the servers themselves need to be protected by zero trust. And did you know that this week, Google approved .zip and .mov as top-level domains? What can possibly go wrong? See you again next week.